All the roads are winding.
All right. Before we start, I just really want to speak this. I'm going to welcome, I feel like all your spirit guides, I'm like, y'all are welcome to the conversation. Okay. Okay. Like, I don't know. Do you feel like you are surrounded by nature spirits all the time?
I feel like I'm surrounded by nature all the time, period. And it's always kind of been that way for me. So it's like the idea of like nebulous spirit guides has, um, I don't know, it's like always seemed a little, I just feel like I'm surrounded by nature, period. Like I'm looking, even when I lived in the city and like growing up, it's like I've always made an effort to be connected to like leaves and branches and mushrooms and moss. And so I just see that all around me. And like in my room, there's like little mushrooms and moss. So I'm like, yeah, these are my spirits
Okay, yeah,
guides.
I feel like there's all these little nature voices that are like, "Oh, we're here!" Like, "Oh,
Yeah, we're here.
we're okay, party! Come on, everybody!" Yeah, well, officially welcome to the podcast. I'm really stoked to play today. See what
Thank you for
comes up.
having me.
Yeah, yeah. So, can you share with us what are your ancestral lineages?
Sure. So, my mom is from Ireland. She immigrated to the US in her
Wow,
20s. Yeah, she met my dad in Ireland. He was studying at UCD
what's
and
that?
at University College of Dublin.
Okay, cool.
So he's an American. His grandparents emigrated to the US from Ireland. So I'm very Irish. and but he was over there studying, getting into his Irish lineage, and he met my mom, and they fell in love and decided. My mom always had this. She's very connected to the natural world too, and she always had this fascination with the color yellow and the sun because you don't get to see it very much in Ireland. It's very green and gray. So meeting an American and falling in love with him, she was like, "Let's go. Let's go to
Off
America."
to sunny lands.
Off to sunny land. So she was down to come with my dad to America. He was like a professor, academic. So she was just like happy to accompany him on that adventure. And growing up, I spent a lot of time in Ireland with my mom. She has this like little camper there, which we would park on my Aunt Lila's land in County Mayo, so like rural Ireland. And we would spend the summers, my sister, brother, and I, in the camper with my mom, and also in the townhouse in Drogheda, which is like a little town north of Dublin. More like urban. So
Wow.
Ireland is like really my lineage, and my sister actually lives there still. Like she is fully living in Ireland. So I would really love to spend more time there as an adult, get reconnect. The last time I was there was about 10 years ago. So
Oh,
I'm
wow.
really due to reconnect as an adult.
Totally. That is so magical, so enchanted, like dream childhood summer adventures. Wow. What kind of stuff would you all do? Would you like go play in the forest or
Oh my gosh, we would have so much fun. So when I was in town in Drogheda, I had loads of friends, like other town kids. So we would just get into mischief, like visit, there's like the town center, and then there are these ditches, and there's a lot of like lore around these ditches and the spirits that live there. So we would get really into it and, just like have full imagination world in Drogheda, and then in County Mayo, where the camper was, my cousins who live there are just like these magical women, so who are a little bit older than me. So I would just like follow them around on all kinds of adventures and play hide and seek. They're surrounded by farmland, so we would just like be running through the fields and like jumping down and betting in it, and like playing epic games of hide and seek. Like,
wow.
yeah,
That is so dreamy, so dreamy. Thanks for taking us there for a second. Like,
for sure. I
that's
went
amazing.
there for a second.
What was some of the lore around the ditch spirits?
Okay, so the one that comes to my mind first is the story of the Banshee. And so trying to remember this, it's been like a long time since I thought about this, but I remember my mom telling me in the middle of the night sometimes I might hear a knocking at the door and that I shouldn't go answer it because it could be the Banshee. And if I answer the door and see the Banshee, like bad things will happen to me. I might like
How
I'll
scary
die.
was that?
And of course, this is like the hot topic in the neighborhood. Then I'm like, so like so banshees are in the neighborhood and they want bad things to happen to us, and the kids are like, yeah, they like they live in this gulch over here or this. And it's not just the kids and my mom who are talking about it. There was actually a priest who came out and like would do blessings over the gulch to like keep the banshees there. And one of the reasons I want to go back to Drogheda and back to Ireland is to like revisit all of this mythology that was like woven through my childhood that I have these half memories of and like questions about. I would love to, learn more about the Banshee. I'm sure there's two sides, right? Yeah.
Wow, yes. I've only heard, the kind of basic fairy tales about the banshee, but don't know much. Don't even so that's how freaking scary as a kid though. You're like, and then like there's especially in old houses and everything's old in Ireland. So I mean, or not everything, but there's a lot more old stuff there than in the States. And it's a lot older. So like everything's
Oh
creaking.
yeah.
Oh my God. Wow. Well, that'll be cool when you get to go back. Please do divulge anything you hear. I would love to hear your adventures. Come back on the
Yes.
show
I would love
after you go to
to.
Ireland. So cool. So nowadays you find yourself in a magically enchanted place of working with herbal medicine, tending the earth through the lens of spiritual ecology, and dying with plants. And I want to know, so it sounds like you had a pretty earth connected childhood just by, where you were. But tell us about where you are now, because you have Suntrap Botanicals, and isn't it Suntrap Farm? And
Yeah.
so like do you like literally live on a farm?
Yes. So
Okay,
I
tell
live
me about this farm. Yeah.
so I live on 3.7 acres in Brooktondale, New York, which is central New York, like 10 miles southeast of Ithaca. And the original stewards of this land were the Haudenosaunee people, which is like the more commonly known as the Iroquois Confederacy. The name refers to an alliance among six Native American nations who were more commonly known as the Iroquois Confederacy, and each nation has its own identity, and they are known as the Mohawk, Oneida, Onondaga, Cayuga, Seneca, and Tuscarora. And I got to know more about the Haudenosaunee people from reading Braiding Sweetgrass, which
Mhm.
dives into the Thanksgiving address, which is what those nations, one thing that they brought to the world is this incredible, like if you've read that book, you know about the Thanksgiving address
Amazing
and how,
book.
how it's a daily thing and it's like a way of life. And I really connect to that idea of gratitude. So I've been studying that lineage of this land, but, you wanna know about the farm. 3.7 acres, Brooktondale, and basically my partner and I moved here 3 years ago about, and when we moved here, it was basically, neglected farmland, like farmland that had just been, on the wayside for about 20 years.
Wow.
So yeah, so honeysuckle and multiflora rose, buckthorn, all of these like so-called invasive species had taken over. And we're like, cool. My partner is an ethnobotanist, like super into plants, has a native plant nursery on this land as well.
Cool.
So we just got together and started like using hand saws to take down these honeysuckle bushes that were like 20 years old, like huge. Like it was our whole
Wow.
first year here was really like working with the land, and for sure we felt so bad taking down the plants. It's like anytime you're removing plants in the landscape, it's like,
Right.
oh my God, like who gave me the right to do this?
Right. Mhm.
Um, but we also know that a diverse landscape can support the wildlife and the ecology much better than the monoculture of honeysuckle and wild rose that had basically taken over. So we're like, this is hard for now, but we are starting so many seeds and collecting so many like ecotypes of native plants growing around here and propagating them. So in the wake of the honeysuckle and buckthorn that we're pulling up, in this 3.7 acres, we are planting those seeds. So that was especially year one. Year two was like building the greenhouses and really starting to propagate all of those plants. So the ethnobotanical nursery is medicinal, edible, craft, pollinator, like you any like native plant, really, any like useful for us or the birds or the bugs, native plants. And I, of course, like really bulk up the medicinal quadrant of those plants. So there's like the
Naturally.
propagation naturally, propagation greenhouse, and then I have a field of herbs that I grow for Suntrap Botanical. And last year we had actually planned out a big expansion and had a couple interns set to come live here. But because it was 2020 and we had a big pandemic, we actually had to like cancel our internship program, which was so hard and sad. But we just didn't have the facilities to like support three more people living on the land during the pandemic. So I think this year we're going to expand out into another field, but I basically have like one field of herbs right now, and I'm looking to like expand that. It's slowly chipping away at different like little zones on the land and identifying, oh, like it's super sunny over here, and like we could really easily get a fence around that and put up um I'll talk about this a lot in the tending the garden class I'm doing for Earth Speak. But if you have the luxury of time and being able to observe land before you plant a garden, it can save you so much energy in the long run because you can see where you can actually work with and save energy. So basically, I'm spying a couple places where I'm thinking it would be easy-ish to put in a field and grow some more. But right now, I'm, probably growing on like half an acre here, which is like sounds tiny, especially if maybe you don't like have never like worked a garden by hand without like major machinery, but it's actually a lot.
That is a lot. I mean, my little, like, you know, less than a quarter acre, which wasn't even fully propagated property in North Carolina was a lot. Like, oh my god. Yeah, so that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. So your farm now is, yeah, half an acre growing, and you're looking to expand out. And what kind, you've got your medicinal herbs, you've got the native plant nursery, and what else do you have going on there? Like, and how, you've given us kind of a hint here of like observing the land before planting. So tell us how you are in relationship with this land and some more things about that, especially through the lens of spiritual ecology.
Mm. Okay, so to answer that question, I'm actually going to take it back to my
Yeah.
childhood,
Okay,
which
please.
which is funny because you asked me about earth spirits and like if they're in the room, and I'm like, I guess they are because that's where it all started for me. And like when I was a little kid, I was the kid in our neighborhood who was mixing plants with rainwater. I told you about Ireland, but I spent most of my time in Philadelphia. That's like where I was based in
Okay,
America
cool.
growing up. So I was a kid in my neighborhood mixing together berries and leaves and rainwater and anointing other kids. And I have been connecting with this a lot lately, like remembering that. And one thing that strikes me is that in the action of like taking these concoctions and putting it on the other children I was hanging out with, I would really connect with my core. Like I remember kind of like pulling in my core and going into this trance state.
Wow.
And so these days, the way that I connect with the earth, like my favorite time is sunrise, especially. and like sunset as well, but like especially sunrise. And I do a similar thing where I, especially in the warmer months, I always have like a warm beverage at hand, and I'll walk the garden, like the field, the garden, the meadow, with a warm beverage, and I do this thing where I just feel like my focus soften, and like this like core connection and soft focus, and it's when I get to observe the most. It's like the quietest time. You can hear the birds. I can kind of just like see everything happening without the stress of like coordinating with like other people on the land, or like having a million things to do, or it's really the time that I get to enjoy it and soak in the beauty. And at times I really think the beauty is what I'm in this whole thing for. And in Philadelphia, I used to farm with a really wonderful vegetable farmer, Adrian. And like he had this incredible urban farm there. I had like an herb farm on it, like a little garden, herb garden
Oh, cute.
on the farm. And like we would bond over the fact that we both felt are we in this for the beauty? Like, just that, like, being able to look out at the field and be like, there's just something so satisfying about that. Like, that's how I connect, and it's not that it's, like, neat rows for me. Like, I'm not, like, a super tidy gardener, like, um, it for me, it's like the wild beauty that, like, erupts from careful planning. It's like, I'm extremely Virgo, I've got, like, Virgo in, like, many placements in my chart. I'm definitely an organizer, a planner, like, that gives me, like, security and happiness. But, I love watching, like, all of that springtime and early summer careful planning just, like, erupt into this beautiful chaos in, like, midsummer and late fall. It's just so I that's how I connect, is, like, that time to just take it all in, really.
I really feel that. I mean, that's how nature speaks to me too, and like the beauty of it. It's just, and like even just the way the light comes through some dappled leaves and hits something, a flower, or even the soil, and you're just like, whoa, you're like, it
Mhm.
touches me.
Yeah.
So I get it. I get it. And I love that you have this like Virgo plan for the explosion. And then you're just like sit back and take it in. It's kind of
Yes.
cool. It's like yeah, planned chaos, but it's not chaos. It's like, ah, I love that too. It's a great example of how planning doesn't have to be rigid.
Mhm.
It's like planning actually can help set us free.
My friend recently said to me, I was telling her like, "Oh, like this particular thing feels like complete chaos." And she stopped me and said, "Chaos or complex harmony?"
Oh God, yes.
I was like,
Thank you. Reframe.
yeah.
Beautiful. So you're in it for the beauty, it sounds like. And when you described, little you in Philadelphia mixing the herbs and the rainwater, anointing people, I'm like, ooh, baby priestess. I mean, I don't know if that's a word you resonate with or not, but it's like just something in you just knew and just lived it. It's like so pure, innocent.
It blows my mind how similar my work is now in a way,
Hmm.
distilled from that activity that just like took me as a child, like my desire and my intuition to just be with the plants, mixing them together, giving them to people. I'm like, my life isn't that different right
You haven't
now.
changed at all. That's awesome. Wow. So how did you find yourself from Philadelphia to upstate New York?
Yeah. So I never thought I would leave Philadelphia. Actually, I love Philly so much. Lived in West Philly for many years and feel really invested in that community. And I decided to leave only because I was going to herb school. So I decided to study clinical herbalism in North Carolina at the Eclectic School of Herbal Medicine. And so I was doing a year-long immersive program there, actually building gardens for the school in exchange for a little cabin. And the school is on like 1,000 acres, like surrounded by thousands of acres of like
Wow.
state forest. I had never been in the mountains like that. So I drive down there, spend a year in this like mountain magical paradise. My car, I had this like pickup truck that broke down as soon as I got there. It like literally got me the 13-hour drive up the mountain from Philadelphia, and then my transmission like fell out as soon as I pulled up. So I was like pretty stuck on the mountain for like a good part of a good part of that time. And so I really like dived in and was like, oh, maybe I was very much like, I'm gonna do this. I'll be right back in West Philly serving the community. Like Philly's like my people where I'm at. And then this thing happened when I was there where I realized, oh, like my herbal practice and my like botanical connection, my mycological connection flourishes when I live in a little cabin in the woods. Maybe I need to explore this for a little longer. And I met Hayden, who ended up becoming my partner at herb school, another one of the students. And we just became like, really good friends. And we got together, and he also was feeling ready to find land and like live the vocation. We both like have these strong vocations with our like land based projects. So we decided on upstate New York because we were taking this teaching road trip together, like teaching through upstate New York and coastal Maine. I used to be in a band, and I would like love to plan tours. So I was like, let's plan like a teaching tour. Like I can totally
Awesome.
do that. I'll just like contact people. And it was so fun. And when we got to go to all of these cool places, and one of them was in the Hudson Valley. And I ended up connecting with somebody there who wanted a steward for her farm. She like couldn't like she had engagements in life that made it hard for her to give the farm everything it needed to thrive. And she felt like this could be an opportunity for somebody to steward it and also for her to not have to worry about it. So we ended up stewarding Field Apothecary Farm in Germantown, New York, Hayden and I together for a season. And we just like, it just worked out beautifully. We fell in love with
Wow.
this area. And Hayden studied at Cornell University. So he had like a connection to Ithaca. We're a little bit west of the Hudson Valley. Um, and it just, through obviously like searching and putting it out there, this little piece of land in Brooktondale came up available, and it just met all of our criteria. And we decided to go for it.
It's so magical. And thanks for sharing your journey there. Cause I know I, for one, am on a similar path of like, where's the land that I feel called to steward and support um, and, living in a city, I'm like, okay, we're going to get there, but it's just one step at a time.
I've started so many gardens in my life, and it used to really stress me out, like starting a garden and leaving it. Like, when do I get to start the garden where I get to watch it come to fruition, like completely, and just stay with it and take
Right.
the
To
fruits
mature.
to
Hmm.
mature. Like I can't like literally like so many gardens I started
I
in my
feel
life.
you. Hmm.
And eventually, like I was talking to my friend Mandy, who is has been a gardener longer than I have. Like she's a bit older than I am, and she said, like, get used to it. This is what the life of a gardener is like, and it's actually a beautiful thing. And like, you should change your perspective because, yeah, it's like you're starting so many gardens. That's a good thing. Like, you're putting that into the world. Like, you should be thankful for that. And you should be thankful for the lessons you learn from each garden you start, because each time you start a garden, you're getting a little better. And eventually, you're going to get to a place where you can start a garden that you'll watch like unfurl year after year.
Mm,
And I
thank
do get
you.
to go
Hmm.
yeah, I do get to go back to some of the gardens that I started, like, even, like, 10 years ago, and it's amazing to see where they are now, and, like, with massive trees that have really grown, and, like, perennial flowers. So,
They
you
really
can
come into
always
their own. Yeah, I feel that because I've helped start community gardens. I've started gardens at rental houses, garden at a house that we own with my husband, and I'm at a rental house now. And you know what, though? I had 2 years in an apartment without a garden, and I cannot do. And I had the year before that we were moving, and so we kind of had a garden, but we had to like leave in the middle of the season, and I this spring, because I'm in California, so it's spring here. Sorry, everybody. Sorry, not sorry.
I'm looking at the icicles at my window.
I'm like, ooh, cherry blossoms. So I have this garden here and it is everything. I'm like, yes, it is so I never took the gardens for granted before, but I'm like, I will never take them for granted ever again, because just having a little spot to go sit outside with some freaking flowers and the sun is life-giving. It is everything. Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Well, thanks for that. I mean, I'm sure so many people have felt that way too, have started a garden, had to leave, started a garden, had to leave, or didn't start a garden because they were in a rental. They were like, had that kind of limiting belief of like, well, I'm just going to leave, so why bother? But you can start a garden with some seeds and see what happens. Yeah.
It was worth it every time.
That's awesome. You need a t-shirt, does it? So all of these, it's like gardening just runs in your blood. I mean, I'm seeing you walk and then wherever you step there's flowers springing up, and just seems like you leave a trail of beautiful blossoms and herbs and things. And in all of this gardening, you are settling into a space to tend and stored. And I love how you started out, talking about removing the rose, the wild rose and the honeysuckle. And what are some of the, you talked about watching the land before you actually start planting. Tell us what you're watching for and how that impacts your decisions, and what pitfalls you're kind of avoiding.
Yeah, great question. So I'm looking for a couple things. First of all, what is the quality of the earth in that area? Like, is it very wet or is it like more dry and arid? And I can work with either one, but it will determine what kind of plants I need to grow there. Like, if I need to grow a field of skullcap, I'm going to be looking for kind of like mucky, wet soil. I'm looking for the flow of water on the land. Like, if water's connect, if it's like pooling there, or if it's draining really quickly, if it would benefit if I were to dig in beds, like in what direction. Looking for the flow of sunlight over the land, like how much light that area is getting, if there's any trees or shading factors around. I also have to think a lot about deer. Where I live
Mm.
now, we have a massive deer population in Tompkins County. So I also think about natural fencing, or like how I could realistically set up a fence in an area. That's a big question. But I think mostly I'm looking for land grade, moisture of the earth, and sunlight. And of course, like windbreaks are important too. We have a lot of trees around the perimeter of our property. So it's like I'm pretty good with like windbreaks.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah. And there's something like when you just watch the land and you get to see what happens, because I've done similar things as well. You get to see sort of little surprises too of what might be growing there. And I don't know, it's just fun. It's like it's so much more intimate than just coming in and dominating and like, I'm gonna put this here and this here and this here, which, I think if you have a big plan, and you're set on it, whatever, go for it. You're gonna learn something. But my personal preference is like, let's watch and look and like get to know each other. And like the land gets to know you and show you things, and yeah, reveal its
Mhm.
secrets.
Yeah, I read One Straw Revolution by
Oh,
Masanobu
I love that
Fukuoka.
book. Oh my
Oh
gosh.
yeah, I feel like that and Sepp Holzer's Guide to Permaculture like exploded my brain like 10 years ago, and I was like, what, actually working with the earth instead of against
Mhm.
it, like it was mind blowing to me, and has definitely heavily influenced how I do everything with the land, is like just requiring less energy of myself and more respect to the earth. It's a win-win.
That's beautiful. So it sounds like you've had a very enchanted journey. I'm curious to hear what it was a roadblock in the way, either, a limiting belief you had or something that held you back from the external world?
Um, Roadblock. I mean, I feel like I'm experiencing more roadblocks now than I have
Hmm.
in a long time. And that is honestly just the reality of living through such a challenging moment with lack of connection, lack of ability to have people here working with me. Um, I I have like a very strong connection to my intuition and like to I feel like um, I experience it as the coming together of trust um, and presence. So it's, I feel like that's like kind of getting train wrecked just by the reality of right now because it's hard for me to go with my instincts, which haven't exactly adjusted to living in a pandemic and all of the hurdles that come from that. So it's actually nothing that I have exactly worked out yet, but I'm practicing letting go more recently. Like I'm very much the type of person who lays plans and like wants to follow them like fully to a T and gets really excited about being able to do that. And so far in my life, I have lived a kind of unconventional life. Like I decided not to go to college because I didn't want to. Like I was just very sure that like I actually like I don't connect with the culture of that of like college life, and I would rather go intern on a farm, frankly, and just like being able to follow that path and understand what I need to do on my path. I feel very lucky to have connected with my vocation earlier in life, and so to have kind of avoided a period of not knowing what to do with myself, like it gives me a lot of sense of purpose to feel in devotion to making plant medicine. But recently, it has just been challenging to not be able to share that on a personal level, and yeah,
Like
I don't
figuring
really
out how to go all digital.
figuring out how to go all digital, exactly, all of these new roadblocks, yeah, I guess I'm experiencing more roadblocks now than in the past, if I'm honest,
Mhm.
and I don't quite know how to go about it, but I'm trying to release it, and I think maybe that has been why I've been connecting with, my inner child so much recently, is, like, maybe that's a version of myself that is able to let go of those plans, to hold the vocation close, but to let go. Um,
What is that looking like for you?
it's looking like work, you know? I Yeah, I feel like I've been on this course for quite a long time, and it's I haven't had to stop and think about like, oh, like I haven't really had to stop and think about things. Like how do I want to say this? I think I've been doing more personal reflection and personal work than I have in a long time because I've been so focused on my work outside of myself and serving the community and serving the earth and being fully immersed in Suntrap Botanical, just like giving it my all. And I've had to really step back the past couple months, especially like since the early winter, and really work on allowing myself to like let go of plans and let go of the set way that I want things to work out and trust in that process a little bit more.
It sounds huge. I mean, as someone who's a multi Virgo who is skilled at planning, that's it sounds like a really big, I don't know, it's a really big surrender.
It's a huge surrender.
Wow. How's it feel?
It feels good, and that it's hard, and I think that like I don't want to deny the hardness, But what surprises me is that it does feel good to lean into. So when I am in like that scenario where I'm realizing, okay, my plans aren't happening because of a multitude of reasons. And I can choose to accept this and to keep moving and to let the plans evolve and to be conscious of the fact that that's hard for me and not what I necessarily want to do or how I'm used to experiencing things. And it feels good to lean into that and to allow myself to have a different response.
Mhm, mhm. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah, do you wanna hear, a mantra that has been, like,
Yeah,
flowing through
totally.
my
Mhm.
journal over the past couple
Yeah.
of months? I will respond to situations that scare me with love.
Mm, that's fun to ground into. It's beautiful. That's amazing. I mean, the there's so much I wanna ask about this because I feel like there's people who've probably in a similar situation who, we all had plans and, uh, when the plans just can't go as planned, what are you paying attention to now? Because it sounds like before, even, it sounds like you worked with your intuition to make a plan, but now without, you know, where's the balance and what are you paying attention to now?
Yeah, I feel like the intuition goes kind of haywire when your plans, like, fall apart. It's like, "What am I supposed to be doing?"
Like,
And
do you, like,
it's
lose trust in that too, and you can't
yeah.
vision?
When everything goes haywire, when your intuition is going haywire and it feels like all the plans aren't making sense anymore. For me, I found that it is an opportunity to let it all like shake down, to let everything fall apart and to connect to the reasons why, to connect to that gut instinct. And for me, that is making high quality plant medicine available and also herbal education because I believe that people can be empowered to make this high quality plant medicine themselves. So knowing that's my core, um, everything else can change and allowing that to be possible, to not hold fast to any one way that this can happen, but to understand that this can happen in 100 ways. And just as I want to support and inspire other people on this path, I can also remind myself that my path doesn't have to look one way. My path can branch and change. And as long as I stay connected to why I'm doing this and what gives me life and excitement for this vocation, then it doesn't really matter. Things will fall apart again and again. And as long as I'm connected to the core reasoning, that's okay. I can rebuild.
Sounds like a liberation. Not to say that plans aren't liberating. I like plans, but I also yeah, sounds like a liberation from only needing to plan. Um, I see all your inner Virgos. It's okay, babies. They're like, "Well, we want a plan." Oh, oh, that's amazing. I mean, I just wanna reflect too. I think the pandemic has put me through a similar situation where I had plans and they worked, but then they didn't, and then, like, I was like, "What's happening?" And it was a shakedown, and it didn't make sense why they stopped working even, and I had to really just go back to the core and be like, "Well, what's the core?" And focus on that, and instead of doing what I thought my plan should be, look at what keeps showing up. And so I've been in a sort of similar place. Yeah, just feeling it. Wow. So thanks for sharing that and letting us just kind of get a peek into that vulnerable space because, those are feels and that's the kind of like the real inner uh mist that I know many of us are walking through at any given moment. So thanks for sharing yours.
Yeah, thank you for asking that question. My friend Petra, who runs a beautiful company, Fruition Seeds, with her partner in upstate New York, she and I have been reflecting on wanting to be more vulnerable and open about our struggles as people who have businesses out in the world and who are active on social media, and trying to find that line of actually showing the hard parts. Like, there's lots of ways to see my life as enchanted and exciting, and that is mostly what I want to share. But the truth is, there are hardships and struggles. So, as hard as it is for me to go there and share that in a public forum, I also hope that that could be helpful for somebody else to see a more nuanced picture of what's going on
Mhm.
behind everything.
Totally. It's not just the highlight reel. Mhm. Thank you. Mhm. Yeah. Well, I wanna talk a little bit about spiritual ecology. Like, what is that? What does that mean to you? And how do you apply it to your life?
Yeah, so spiritual ecology really resonated with me as a way to build on my gardening 101 class, because it is just the way that I experience my own personal relationship with my garden. Like I said, how I wake up most mornings and take a warm beverage and walk through the fields. To me, that is spiritual ecology, is deeply connecting with the plants and the animals and the mushrooms of the land, the hills, the rocks, the flowers. It's being in relationship with the earth instead of seeing it as this project, as this idea. In part of my presentation and part of the class, I talk about, we go through all of the gardening concepts and the planning and the planting, propagation, maintenance, all of this. But I like to remind people that if you don't have the energy to do that, don't worry. It's like, you said you'd run community gardens, or been part of them. So have I. And so often I've seen people leave a community garden like halfway through the season. And when I connect with them, they say it's because they ended up feeling guilty, like they didn't have enough time to devote to the piece of earth. And so they would avoid going there because it was like, oh, it becomes this pain point and this like burden in a way. And one thing I want to get across to every gardener is to release all guilt around that. You don't have to dominate the garden for it to thrive. If you don't have time to weed or do some big project or even do much planting, still just go to the garden and bring a picnic blanket and plop yourself down and just connect with what's already growing there. And chances are, if you bring an ID book, you'll discover that there are medicinal and edible and beautiful plants already growing in the garden. Even if you let it go for like a month, like just releasing that guilt and just connecting, and there's so much to connect with.
I love that. Thank you for that. Because I one of the very first gardens I started was with a dear friend in her family's field, and I remember we poured through seed catalog, and I spent, like, so much of my very hard-earned money at that time on these seeds, and I remember we wanted mugwort, and we bought mugwort seeds, but then, a few weeks later when the fields started to pop up and spring came around, turns out the whole freaking field was full of mugwort. We just didn't know. So you never know what's gonna pop up, and it goes back to what you're talking about just, like, watching and I love this, being in a relationship. Thank you. Yeah, I think that, that guilt around no time, I see that too in my own business with people feeling like they don't have time to sit with themselves. Like if they're gonna be with themselves, and reflect that it has to be like this work and they gotta catch up and do it all. And I love how you've just reframed this of like, no, you don't have to like achieve anything. It's literally just about creating the space to sit with yourself. For you, it's from what you're saying with gardening, it's like creating the space to just go sit with the garden and see what's growing. Literally the same freaking thing.
Yes.
It's like that's it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's a big paradigm shift, I think, for people because we're so conditioned to achieve, 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 productivity, get it right, check off the list, da 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 da. Like, what? Just sit and create space without having a plan? Oh my gosh, without having an objective of what we're gonna achieve? Oh my god, how are we gonna do it? Yeah.
It feels so good.
It really does.
To just release that guilt and that expectation and just enjoy that presence, that moment. And there's nothing better to me than like lying down in my garden and like massive sunflowers towering over and just like doing nothing and the things that come to you in those moments.
I wholeheartedly agree. I realized the other day, I was like, "I want to be a cat." Just lay in the garden in the
Yeah, I've thought
sun.
that many times. Mm.
Yeah. Wow. So spiritual ecology, coming at, you know, the earth, being in relationship with the earth. And I know many of our listeners, if not all, really resonate with that. I mean, that's why they're here. They're like, yeah, we're not here to freaking dominate the earth and like extract and whatever. We're here to come back into relationship with the earth and yeah, rediscover that. It's, these past couple of millennia have really done a number on us and the earth and our relationship. It's that, and something that's so cool is like that connection's already there. It's always been there. It's like we just got to turn our attention, release that guilt, be willing to show up. That's it.
Totally.
Geraldine is teaching a class with Earthspeak about gardening through the lens of spiritual ecology. So y'all can sign up. If you're in the collective, you're already going to get to go. So go ahead. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so the class is called Tending the Earth, the Sensual Garden. And part of the way that I invite you into this relationship with spiritual ecology is through engaging the senses. And so I teach you plant propagation, which to me is like the creation of life. There's nothing more exciting than learning how to start seeds and make cuttings and divide the plants that are already in the landscape. And I also give a little presentation through the senses of different plants that I invite and encourage you to cultivate in your gardens, and like one for the sight and one for the scent and one for the taste and the touch and and hearing. Like all of our senses can be fully engaged through the garden, and I really focus on that in this class because I feel like it's a gardening 101 class that like brings in our senses. And that's so exciting to me because I get asked to teach gardening 101 classes. And I love that. Like I'm practiced. I was a greenhouse technician for many years at the University of Pennsylvania. It's like totally my skill set. And then the spiritual ecology allows me to bring in all of like this excitement I have for the sensual world into this framework that my Virgo self has already built up. It's so I'm really excited for that class.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Do they need to be out living in the land to participate? Or, if they're in a city, can they participate?
Yeah, absolutely. So I lived in the city for many years as a greenhouse technician, like I just mentioned, at University of Pennsylvania. And some of that time I only had access really to a balcony at home, and I had like incredible potted like I want to say like botanical gardens on my balcony, just like so many plants and things going on. You can definitely live in the city and take this class, like absolutely.
Amazing. Ooh. I'm a gardening nerd, so I could talk about gardening all day. I'm like, yes, I'll be
Too.
there. I'm even like a pretty seasoned gardener, and I'm like, I feel like every time I listen to someone talk about it, I learn something because it's an endless, endless pursuit.
Endless. Yeah, me too. I could go to a million gardening classes for sure, just to nerd
Mhm.
out,
Mhm.
learn something new.
Well, I want to know what, if any, like, ha ha ha, if any, but what plant or plants have been really speaking to you lately and how?
I have been connecting with Angelica
Ooh.
recently. So Angelica has this like really bright energy, which I live in a place that's pretty cloudy this time of year. So connecting with this like really brightening, like warming, stimulating herb has been deep medicine for me. A lot of people are familiar with um, Angelica, Arch Angelica. I think it's the European Angelica that's typically found in herbal commerce, but there's also Angelica atropurpurea, which is a native Angelica. It's like native to this area of the United States, like Northeast. I think it can be found throughout actually. But I've been really connecting with Angelica lately and just feeling that solar energy. One of my teachers, Matthew Wood, has this whole category of herbs that he calls the solar herbs. And they're herbs that are very gently warming, like gently stimulating, like the visual of the sun evaporating a puddle on the sidewalk.
Mm.
Like that's kind of how we think of the solar herbs, just like gently moving and warming. And so I've been taking 3 dropperfuls of Angelica tincture in my morning water, and I'm just like I can feel it coursing through my body, and it makes me want to be like, "Hey Hayden, I think you should have some Angelica." Like, "Oh hey Sarah, Max, like my pod, my friends, like I think you should have some Angelica." I'm like pushing Angelica right now on everybody because I'm like feeling it. And I'm like, oh, this is really like bringing up my digestion. It's bringing up my mood. And I'm so looking forward to seeing Angelica sprout up in the garden soon. It's this really beautiful plant that I like love seeing on the farm. So
Ah, magical. It's like an inner sunshine, it sounds like.
yeah, I'm waiting for Angelica to come to me in the spring. But in the meantime, I'm
Ah,
working with the extract from last year's harvest.
beautiful. Mm. So tell us too about what, you know, so you don't just teach gardening, you teach herbalism and medicine making. So tell us a little bit about that.
Oh, yeah, I would love to. So, I teach a course called Bioregional Herbalism and Medicine Making. And oh, it's the best. So, I've been teaching classes about herbalism for 10 years at this point, and I've had the pleasure of teaching at all kinds of different places, mostly in person, like at food co-ops, urban farms, rural farms. Bard College, Yale University, wherever I'm living, like I like music festivals. I love teaching um, herbal medicine making, and a lot of times it's been this like 1 to 2 hour class about how to work with water, oil, alcohol, vinegar, and honey. Just I
Mm.
have like a little zine, and then it like goes through all of those solvents. We choose one and we make a preparation as a class, and I was just doing that for years, and it was so satisfying because students really seem to get a lot out of it and take home information and stay connected and be on their own herbal journey with that info. Like I love making medicine and selling it on the like I love like providing that, but I also like really get a lot out of teaching people how to do it themselves. And so a couple of years ago, like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I started thinking about it as a wider class. Like I have so much more to say every time I taught the class. Like, how can I expand this out? And so I was like, well, first of all, the first thing I should talk about is just what is herbalism and like what is bioregional herbalism, which is working with the abundant plants of your region instead of importing plants from wherever. And there's so many reasons to do that. First of all, it's like the best thing you can do ecologically and like for your own spirituality is connecting with the plants of your region and like really understanding how to be a responsible herbalist, stewarding the land, or supporting people who are stewarding. Like you don't have to be a farmer or a gardener to be a bioregional herbalist. You can absolutely just connect with people who are those things in your area. And I have a whole list on my website of herb farmers by region. So
Wow.
like you can easily get bulk herbs from people wherever you live. And and then of course for freshness, like if you're buying an herb, through some like large carrier, it might have been sitting in a warehouse for like a year or two. Like, sorry, even if it says organic, that warehouse might have been sprayed with like insecticides to keep like there are just so many reasons. Like, just get it straight from the source. And like, yeah, sure, there are 100 astringent herbs. And like, there are not 100, there are hundreds, thousands of astringent herbs, like all over the world. So why not choose one that grows outside your door? Like, sure, you could choose one that you're importing from like across the sea, and it will likely have that astringent effect. But you could also just choose one that's in your garden, and or like in somebody else's garden nearby. So there's a lot of reasons to work with the herbs around you. So I do a whole module on herbalism, energetic herbalism, um, the whole thing. We get deep into it. And then I do a whole module on water, and we explore hot infusions, cold infusions, decoctions, steams, um, syrups, and and then we do a whole module on vinegar and honey, and we get to explore um, apple cider vinegar, white vinegar, honey, the combination of the two as an oxymel, um, making home like products for cleaning your house, for cleaning your body, for taking internally. And then in the oil module, we make infused plant oils, we make balms and creams, we make topical medicine. And in the alcohol module, we make all manner of tinctures. So we're making, I teach, of course, like the folk method in each module, but then I also teach ratio methods, which is what I use because I need repeatable results. It like I make medicine and I sell it to a large population. So I want to have it be the same every time. I want to know exactly what to expect. So I teach my methods and my ratios by that through using the ratio method. And we teach like acidified tinctures and elixirs and formulating. So in
Wow.
expanding out the class, it's really allowed me to go so much deeper with each solvent and to turn the zine that I wrote so many years ago into like a full on beautiful course booklet. It's been really pleasurable. And last year I gave the course live online, which is funny. I had actually, like, before coronavirus even happened, I had been planning to do this online course. So it was kind of like I was expecting, like 15 people to sign up, like just like a very like intro first time doing the course. And I ended up having 50 people in the course,
Cool.
and it was incredible. And so it went so well, and we just had a great time. So this year I'm doing it self-paced. My dear friend and neighbor recorded. She's an incredible videographer. So she recorded the whole
Wow.
class for me in my garden, and we're releasing it on March 1st. And I'm so excited.
Wow, that sounds so
Yeah,
beautiful.
I could talk
Wow.
about herbalism and herbal medicine making forever. It's like truly one of my favorite things to nerd out on.
That's so cool. Are there any live calls or anything, or is it all just pre-recorded?
So there is the option to do a private mentorship with me. So if you want to do weekly calls, you can totally do that, but you don't have to.
Cool, cool. That's really beautiful. So, that'll be coming up soon, folks. Where can people find you, and how can they, you know, what's the best chance of them remembering to get this when it's open?
Totally. So you can follow me on Instagram at Suntrap Botanical, or go straight to my website, suntrap.co, and sign up for my newsletter.
Amazing. And those are all, of course, listed in the show notes. And thank you. We didn't even get to talk about plant dyeing, but
Yeah.
and your new sister company, Sunblood. So maybe we'll get to talk about that in the secret episode.
Oh, I'd love
What do you
that.
think? All right. Wow. Well, thank you so much, Geraldine, for your magic, your medicine, and all your little nature spirit posse, your entourage. They're like party for joining the fun today. And it was really just such a pleasure, such a delight to chat with you.
Thank you, Natalie, for facilitating this and for bringing things out of me that I didn't expect.
You're welcome. Here for it anytime.
All the roads are windy.
Listen to over 200 free Earthspeak podcast episodes on your favorite podcast app and visit earthspeak.love to learn about our collective community and workshops.